60 families were sold a lie wrapped in fresh asphalt and HOA rules. I rode out expecting a broken fence, maybe a loose cow, maybe some county mistake. What I found was 60 brand new HOA homes sitting on Mercer Creek Ranch, right where my father's cattle used to graze. Then Linda Carver rolled up in a white golf cart and told me I was trespassing. That was her first mistake, because the road under her wheels, the land under those houses, and the old deed in my cabinet were all still mine. Stay with me, and if you like stories where quiet people stand on truth instead of noise, subscribe before this gate closes. I found the first broken post just after sunrise, not snapped by a steer, not split by winter rot, cut clean at the base like somebody had taken a saw to it and walked away proud. The wire that should have run west across Mercer Creek Ranch was gone too, pulled tight from the next post, stripped clean for nearly a quarter mile. I sat there on my mare, Daisy, staring at that empty line in the frost. That fence had been there since before I was old enough to hold a hammer. My father, Wade Mercer, set those cedar posts with his own hands, back when this country still had more cattle than mailboxes. He used to say a fence wasn't just there to keep animals in. It was there to remind men where respect began. That morning, respect had been cut out of the ground. I swung down from the saddle and crouched near the post. Fresh tire tracks dug through the frozen dirt, wide and heavy, the kind left by equipment that didn't belong on open pasture. They ran straight through the missing fence and over the rise toward the west section. I thought maybe it was a county crew, maybe a fire break mistake. Maybe somebody had crossed the wrong parcel and would spend the next week apologizing. Then Daisy lifted her head and went still. I followed the tracks on foot, leading her by the reins. The old cattle lane curved between two low hills, past the dry wash where Mercer Creek only ran hard in spring. I knew every rock along that lane. I had ridden it with my father when I was 9, with a busted lip from falling off a colt and his hand steady on my shoulder. At the top of the ridge, I stopped. Below me, where blue grama grass used to roll to the creek, stood houses. Not one, not two, rows of them. 60 brand new homes, clean and identical, roofs shining under the pale Colorado sun. Fresh driveways, white mailboxes, little ornamental trees tied to stakes, sprinklers ticking over new sod that had no business growing in January. A moving truck idled beside one garage while a woman carried a box across a porch built where my cattle used to shade up in July. For a few seconds, my mind refused to take it in. I looked left, then right, trying to make the land turn back into what it had been. The cottonwoods were still there at the creek bend, the red rock shelf still cut across the north slope. The windmill my father rebuilt in 1987 still stood crooked against the sky. I was not lost. They had built a subdivision on my ranch. I walked farther down the ridge until I saw the sign at the entrance. Polished stone base, brushed metal letters, fancy enough to make theft look like progress. Silver Pines Estates, private HOA community. Private. I almost laughed, but nothing came out. I had not sold an acre of Mercer Creek Ranch, not to a developer, not to a county board, not to any homeowner association with a pretty sign and matching mailboxes. My name was on the deed. My father's name was in the old records. His father's brand was still burned into the beams of the barn behind my house. Yet there it was, sitting in plain daylight. A whole neighborhood, planted like a flag in soil my family had paid for with sweat, debt, and years nobody in those houses would ever understand. I stepped onto the new asphalt. It was smooth under my boots, black and clean, still smelling faintly of tar. That angered me more than the rooftops. The road followed the old Mercer cattle lane, the same track my father told me never to sign away. It ran from the county highway, through my west pasture, and straight into Silver Pines, One road in, one road out, and every inch of it lay inside my boundary. A dog barked somewhere down the street. A garage door opened. A boy on a bicycle slowed when he saw Daisy and me standing there like ghosts from a country the developers forgot to bury. Then I heard the whine of a small electric motor. A white golf cart rolled toward me from between two houses. The woman driving it wore a cream coat, dark sunglasses, and held a clipboard against the steering wheel like it gave her the authority of a badge. Her mouth was already set in a hard line before she reached me. She stopped 10 feet away and looked me over, from my dusted boots to the reins in my hand. "You're not allowed to be here," she said. "This is private HOA property." I looked past her at the sign, at the rooftops, at the road cut through my father's land. Then I looked back at her. "Ma'am," I said, keeping my voice low. "That's what I came to find out." Her chin lifted, and I knew before she said another word that this woman had come to order me off my own ranch. "This is a restricted community," she said, tapping the clipboard with one red fingernail. "Equestrian traffic is not permitted on HOA roads without prior approval." I looked down at the asphalt under my boots. "This used to be a cattle lane." Her smile tightened. "It is now Silver Pines Boulevard." "According to who?" "According to the approved development plan." She said it like she was reading from stone tablets. "I'm Linda Carver, president of the Silver Pines Estates Homeowners Association. You are currently standing inside a private HOA community." I let her name settle. Linda Carver. Cream coat. White golf cart. Clipboard. A woman standing on my land, speaking to me like I was a delivery driver who had missed a sign. "My name is Caleb Mercer," I said. "This is Mercer Creek Ranch." For the first time, her expression cracked. "Not much. Just enough." Then she laughed. Not loud, not nervous, worse than that. Polite, dismissive, like I had brought her a childish misunderstanding she was too busy to correct. "Mr. Mercer," she said, "the ranch boundary is north of the creek. Silver Pines was approved through Elkhorn County Planning 6 months ago. We have filed roads, lot numbers, occupancy permits, and homeowners who paid real money to live here. The creek is not the boundary. It is now." I felt something cold move through my chest. Behind her, a man opened a garage and rolled out a trash bin stamped with the Silver Pines logo. A woman pulled curtains aside to watch us. Daisy shifted behind me, hooves clicking once against the fresh curb they had poured along my old lane. Linda followed my eyes and lifted the clipboard higher. "I'm going to be very clear," she said. "You cannot wander through this neighborhood on horseback claiming old family stories. You're upsetting residents." "Family stories?" "Yes. We deal with this often. Legacy owners. Boundary confusion. Emotional attachment to undeveloped land." She tilted her head. "Progress can feel personal." I stared at her. The ridge behind those houses held my father's old windmill. The draw beyond the cul-de-sac had a salt lick buried under the first snow. I had pulled calves out of spring mud where that white mailbox row now stood. She called it undeveloped land. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out my phone. Without answering her, I took a photo of the sign, then the road, then the line of houses, then Linda standing in front of all of it with that clipboard. Her face sharpened. "Are you recording me? Documenting my property?" "This is not your property. That's what we're going to find out." She stepped from the cart, heels clicking on the road like small hammer strikes. "No, Mr. Mercer. That is what has already been determined. Silver Pines Estates is a county-approved private community. If you return without authorization, the HOA will issue a formal violation notice. I'm not a member of your HOA. If you enter HOA jurisdiction, You are subject to community rules. I almost smiled at that. Almost. You think your rules follow me onto my own deed? I think men like you hear the word deed and assume it means whatever you want it to mean. Her voice lowered. We have attorneys who handle these situations. Men like me? Difficult landowners. People who interfere after proper development has already occurred. There it was. Not confusion. Not mistake. A script. She had been waiting for someone like me. Maybe even for me specifically. And whoever handed her that script had forgotten one thing. Land does not become yours because you pave it. I looked past her again, down the road curving toward the county highway. The new asphalt followed the old Mercer cattle lane exactly. I could see it now with a surveyor's eye, though I was no surveyor. It bent around the sandstone cut, crossed the shallow wash, then ran straight through the narrow gap between two ridges. There was no second entrance, no back road, no service access, one vein in, one vein out, and that vein ran across my land. Linda must have mistaken my silence for surrender because she pulled a small orange card from her clipboard and held it out. Consider this a courtesy warning, she said. Future violations may result in fines, removal, or law enforcement involvement. I did not take it. She held it there another second, then tucked it under Daisy's saddle strap like she was ticketing a parked car. That was the first time my anger showed. Not in my voice, not in my hands, just in the way I looked at her. Linda took one step back. Remove that, I said. Her mouth opened, then closed. I reached over, pulled the orange card free, and read the top line. Silver Pines Estates, HOA, unauthorized entry notice. Below that, in neat printed language, it accused me of entering private community property without permission. I folded it once and put it in my coat pocket. Thank you, I said. For what? For putting it in writing. Her eyes narrowed. I gathered Daisy's reins and turned her toward the ridge. I did not argue. I did not threaten. I did not tell Linda Carver that I knew exactly where the old boundary pins sat, or that my father's survey maps were locked in a cedar cabinet back home. I just looked once more at the road. The only road. Then I rode back toward Mercer Creek Ranch with one question burning hotter than the cold air in my lungs. If I never sold this land, who changed the map? I did not unsaddle Daisy right away. I tied her at the barn rail, walked straight into the house, and pulled the cedar map cabinet open so hard the brass handle cracked against the wood. The old survey rolls were exactly where my father left them, wrapped in brown paper and marked in his block handwriting. West Pasture, Cattle Lane, Mercer Creek Boundary. I spread them across the kitchen table and weighted the corners with coffee mugs. The lines were old, but they were clean. The west fence ran beyond the creek, over the ridge, and down through the ground where Silver Pines now sat shining like it had always belonged there. It did not. By noon, I was at the Elkhorn County Recorder's office with the orange HOA notice folded in my coat pocket. Nora Pike was behind the counter. She had worked there since I was a teenager, back when my father used to bring me in and make me stand quiet while he recorded grazing leases. Her hair had gone silver, but her eyes still missed nothing. Caleb Mercer, she said, you look like a man who found trouble. I found houses. That stopped her. I gave her the parcel number for Mercer Creek Ranch. She typed it in, waited, then leaned toward the screen. Her face changed before she said a word. What? I asked. She turned the monitor toward me. The original parcel layer showed what I expected. Mercer Creek Ranch, continuous boundary, my name as owner, no sale history, no subdivision release. Then Nora clicked another tab. A newer digital overlay appeared on top of the West Pasture, neat and bright, carved into streets and lots. Silver Pines Estates. My jaw tightened. That is on my parcel. Yes, she said quietly. It is. Show me the transfer. She clicked again. Nothing. Show me the easement. Another search. Nothing. Subdivision approval? Nora's fingers slowed. There's a planning file, but not a completed one. What does that mean? It means someone opened the door but never legally walked through it. She printed the file history. The machine behind her started spitting pages, each one hitting the tray like another nail being driven into the table. The developer was listed as Prairie Crest Development. LLC. Denver mailing address. No local office. The west pasture was marked under a pending residential overlay. The access lane was labeled Proposed Community Road. Proposed. I looked at Nora. That road is already paved. I know. She pulled one page from the printer and held it in both hands. Caleb, you need to see this. The memo was short, administrative language, dry enough to hide a crime inside it. Owner consent presumed due to non-response. I read it twice. I never got a notice. Nora looked toward the hallway, then lowered her voice. There's no certified receipt in the file. No signed delivery. No returned envelope. Nothing proving they ever contacted you. Who approved it? She turned back to the screen. Temporary planning consultant. Martin Kessler. Call him. He's gone. Contract ended 4 months ago. She clicked one more document, then froze. What now? This signature date, she said. It's after his resignation date. The room seemed to narrow around me. The houses, the road, Linda's laugh, the orange notice accusing me of trespass. It all moved from impossible mistake to something colder. Somebody had changed a map and hoped the land would stay quiet long enough for concrete to make the lie feel permanent. Nora printed everything she could legally release and slid the stack across the counter in a plain manila folder. File a formal records request for the rest. Today. I will. And Caleb? She glanced at the orange notice when I pulled it from my pocket. Do not go down there angry. If they pushed this through wrong, they'll try to make you look like the problem. I nodded because she was right. Outside, I sat in my truck with the engine off, the folder on the passenger seat, and the courthouse flag snapping hard in the wind. I had spent my life trusting fences, brands, deeds, and handshakes. But this was not fence trouble. This was paper trouble. And paper trouble needed a paper fighter. I called Evelyn Shaw. She answered on the third ring. Mercer, you still handle land disputes? I handle people who pretend land records are suggestions. Then I've got one for you. I told her everything. The missing fence, the subdivision. Linda Carver. The road. Nora's file. The presumed consent memo. The signature dated after the planner had already left. Evelyn stayed silent until I finished. Then she said, Do not threaten them. Do not block anything yet. Do not give Linda Carver a scene she can use. She already gave me an HOA warning. Good. Good? If they're dumb enough to claim authority over you in writing, let them. Every lie on letterhead is evidence. I looked through the windshield toward the west, where the rooftops of Silver Pines sat hidden beyond the winter ridgeline. What do I do now? Go home, Evelyn said. Scan every deed, survey, and notice your father ever saved. Tomorrow, we start building the wall. What wall? The one their whole neighborhood is going to run into. I hung up and picked up the orange warning again. Unauthorized entry notice. Linda Carver thought she had handed me a threat. What she had really handed me was the first brick. The second brick arrived before breakfast. A white envelope sat clipped to my front gate with the Silver Pines Estates logo stamped in blue across the corner. Whoever left it had driven 6 miles up my private ranch road, past 2 no trespassing signs and the old cattle guard my father welded himself. They had not mailed it. They had wanted me to find it hanging there like a warning. I opened it on the hood of my truck. Notice of HOA violations. My name was typed wrong at first, then corrected by hand. Caleb Mercer. Mercer Creek Ranch. The charges ran down the page like somebody had tried to make stupidity look official. Unauthorized livestock presence within Silver Pines jurisdiction. Unapproved perimeter fencing. Disruptive conduct toward HOA personnel. Use of non-compliant equestrian access on community roadways. At the bottom, in bold print, was the total. $9,600. I read it once. Then again. They were fining me for cattle on my ranch, for a fence my father built, for walking a horse down a road they had paved across my land without permission. I took a photo, scanned the pages, and sent them to Evelyn Shaw. She called 5 minutes later. "Do you understand what this is?" she asked. "A bad joke." "No, it's better than that. It's a signed admission that they believe their HOA has jurisdiction over you and Mercer Creek Ranch." "She signed it?" "Last page." I flipped the sheet over. Linda Carver's signature curled across the bottom, neat and proud. Evelyn's voice sharpened. "Do not pay it. Do not argue by phone. Bring every original deed and survey you have. We're going to visit her." By 10 that morning, Evelyn's black SUV rolled into my yard, throwing dust across the barn lot. She stepped out in dark jeans, boots, and a gray coat, carrying a leather folder that looked like it had ended careers before lunch. I laid the documents across my kitchen table. The 1968 deed, the 1984 boundary confirmation, the old cattle lane sketch, the county printouts Nora Pike had given me, and Linda's fine notice. Evelyn read fast, but nothing slipped past her. "She's either reckless," she said, tapping the fine, "or she's been told the lie is already too big to challenge." Which is worse? For them? Both. We drove to Silver Pines together. The clubhouse sat near the entrance, all glass and fake stone, with a flagpole out front and fresh mulch around shrubs that looked like they came from a catalog. A sign by the door read, "Residents and authorized guests only." Evelyn walked past it without slowing. Inside, Linda Carver stood at a conference table with Tom Bledsoe, the HOA vice president, a square-shouldered man in a golf shirt who looked like he practiced being unimpressed. They both turned when we entered. Linda's eyes landed on me first, then on Evelyn's folder. "Mr. Mercer," she said, "you were instructed not to enter HOA property." Evelyn stepped forward. "He entered his property. I'm Evelyn Shaw, counsel for Caleb Mercer." Tom folded his arms. "This is a private association office. So is the ground under it," Evelyn said. "That's the problem." Linda gave a small laugh. "We're not doing this again." "Yes," Evelyn said, placing certified copies on the table. "You are." She laid them out one at a time. "Deed, survey, county parcel record, no easement, no transfer, no annexation." Linda did not touch them. Tom glanced down once, then looked away like the paper might stain him. "You built 60 homes on land still titled to Mercer Creek Ranch," Evelyn said. "You paved a road across a private cattle lane. Then you issued an HOA fine against a man who is not a member of your association." Linda's face hardened. "Families live here now. That does not create ownership. You can't erase a community because of an old paperwork issue." I spoke before Evelyn could answer. "You erased my ranch first." The room went still. For the first time, Tom looked directly at me. Linda's voice lowered. You should be careful, Mr. Mercer. People who threaten established communities tend to lose badly in court. Evelyn smiled without warmth. Then produce one document, a deed, an easement, a signed access agreement, anything giving Silver Pines legal authority over Mr. Mercer's land. Linda picked up the fine notice instead of the deed. This association will protect its residents, she said. No, Evelyn replied. You're protecting a lie. We left the certified copies on the table and walked out. That night, I was in the barn checking Daisy's feed when headlights swept across the yard. Not one truck. 3. They rolled past the ranch gate and stopped at the mouth of the old cattle lane. Men climbed out wearing reflective vests. A flatbed trailer carried steel posts, concrete bags, and black gate panels. Linda had not produced proof. She had sent a crew to lock me out. The flatbed stopped where the old cattle lane met the new asphalt, right at the throat of the west pasture. One man climbed down with a clipboard. 2 others started unloading steel posts like they had every right in the world to sink them into my dirt. I walked out of the barn with my phone already recording. Evening, I said. The foreman looked up, annoyed before he knew why. Road closure installation, HOA authorization. On whose land? He checked his paper. Silver Pines Estates community entrance. I pointed at the ground under his boots. That's Mercer Creek Ranch. He gave me the tired look of a man paid by the hour to ignore arguments. Sir, I just install what they order. Then you might want to call whoever ordered it before you pour concrete on private property. He started to answer, but headlights swept across the lane again. Linda Carver's white SUV rolled in behind the crew, followed by a smaller sedan. Tom Bledsoe stepped out of the sedan, hands in his jacket pockets. Linda came straight toward me with that clipboard tucked against her ribs like body armor. Mr. Mercer, she said, you are interfering with community safety improvements. You're installing a gate on my road. This is the entrance to Silver Pines Estates. It was my cattle lane before your sign existed. Tom moved closer. Caleb, let's keep this civil. Residents need controlled access. Construction traffic, ranch animals, strangers wandering in. Strangers, I said. He looked away first. Linda didn't. The board voted this afternoon. We are securing our perimeter. You don't have a perimeter on my deed. Her face tightened. You keep saying that as though repetition creates fact. I lifted my phone so the camera caught the crew, the steel posts, the asphalt, Linda, Tom, and the open pasture behind them. Say that again. She saw the red recording dot and stopped. Good. I dialed the sheriff's office on speaker. When dispatch answered, I gave my name, location, and the words carefully. I have an unauthorized construction crew attempting to install a gate on private ranch property. I have deed documents and survey records on site. Linda's mouth pressed into a thin white line. Tom muttered, This is unnecessary. No, I said. This is clean. Sheriff Mark Harlan arrived 20 minutes later in a tan county cruiser, dust rolling behind his tires. I had known Mark long enough to know he hated property disputes, but he hated sloppy ones more. He stepped out, nodded to me, then looked at the steel posts stacked beside the road. Who's in charge here? Linda stepped forward before anyone else could breathe. Sheriff, thank goodness. This man is obstructing an HOA-approved safety gate. Mark turned to me. Caleb? I handed him the folder Evelyn had told me to keep in the truck. Certified deed, county parcel record, survey overlay, photos of the broken fence, the HOA fine, the orange warning card. He read in silence. Linda tried to fill it. Sheriff, this is a planned residential community. We have residents, children, deliveries, Emergency access protocols. Mr. Mercer has been making aggressive claims. Mark held up one hand without looking at her. She stopped. That was the first real power shift I saw. He walked 10 yards down the lane, comparing the survey to the road. He looked at the old boundary marker half buried near the wash, then at the new asphalt cutting past it. When he came back, his voice was flat. Crew packs up. The foreman blinked. Sir? You heard me. No posts, no concrete, no gate. Linda's face flushed. On what authority? Mark looked at her then. The recorded deed side. This is HOA business. This is private property belonging to Caleb Mercer until a court tells me different. Tom shifted his weight. 2 residents had wandered down from the nearest houses and were filming from the sidewalk. Linda noticed them and raised her voice. Sheriff, are you really taking his side over 60 families? I'm taking the paperwork side, Mark said. If you have an easement, deed, or court order, bring it. Until then, you don't build here. The foreman did not wait for another speech. He waved his men back to the trailer. Steel clanged against steel as they loaded the posts. Linda stared at me like she was trying to decide whether hatred could move a fence line. You have made a dangerous mistake, she said quietly. I stepped closer, just enough that she could hear me without the residents catching every word. No, Linda. The mistake was building before you checked what my father kept. Her eyes narrowed at the word father. Then she turned, got in her SUV, and drove back toward Silver Pines. Tires hissing over the road, she still thought she could claim. That night, I could not sleep. The ranch house was quiet, except for the old furnace clicking on and off, and the wind dragging loose dust against the windows. I sat in my father's study with the lamp on and the fine notice beside me. Linda had tried paper, then she tried steel. That meant she was not going to stop because of a warning from a sheriff. I opened the lower drawer of Wade Mercer's file cabinet, the one I had avoided since the funeral. Behind tax receipts and grazing leases sat a gray metal box with his handwriting on masking tape across the lid. West Gate. Never give this away. My hand stayed on the lid for a long second. Then I opened it. The box smelled like old paper, gun oil, and the cedar drawer it had slept in for years. Inside were folders tied with cotton string, each one labeled in my father's square handwriting. Tax receipts, grazing permits, fence repairs, water shares. The one on top was different. West Gate. Never give this away. I untied the string and slid the papers out carefully. The first page was a recorded access affidavit from 1984, stamped by Elkhorn County, and notarized in blue ink faded almost gray. It described the old cattle lane from the county highway to the west pasture, not as a road, not as a public way, but as a private ranch access corridor retained exclusively by Wade Mercer and his heirs. I read the line 3 times, retained exclusively. Beneath it was a survey sketch showing the lane running through the same narrow gap where Silver Pines had poured its black asphalt. Same curve, same wash, same approach to the ridge. They had not built a new road. They had paved over my father's. Under the survey was a yellow legal pad sheet, folded in half. My father's writing covered both sides, firm at the top, shakier near the bottom. Caleb, if you're reading this, somebody is probably trying to make the West Gate sound less important than it is. Don't believe them. That lane is the vein of the pasture. Once they control the vein, they control the land beyond it. I sat back in his old chair. For a moment, the fight with Linda went quiet. All I heard was my father's voice, rough from dust and years, telling me the same thing he had told me at 16 when a gas company tried to buy an easement across the creek. A man can sell dirt once. Access, he sells forever. I took photos of every page and sent them to Evelyn. She called so fast the phone buzzed before I set it down. "Caleb," she said, and there was no warmth in her voice now, only focus. "This is the heart of it. It proves the lane was private. It proves more than that. It proves it was specifically retained. If Silver Pines used it without permission, they didn't just cross your land. They built their entire development around an access corridor they never had." I looked at the map again. "Can we stop them? We can file quiet title, trespass, injunctive relief. But we need to move before they create more facts on the ground. They already created 60 houses. Then we start with the road." I stood and walked to the window. In the distance, past the dark pasture, I could see the faint glow of Silver Pines lights tucked below the ridge. A whole neighborhood breathing through my father's lane. "What do you need from me?" I asked. "Everything. Originals scanned tonight. Deed chain. The 1984 affidavit. Nora's county records. The HOA fine. Photos of the attempted gate. Sheriff Harlan's incident number if you have it." "I have his card." "Good. Tomorrow morning I file a quiet title complaint and prepare an emergency injunction. Until the court rules do not block traffic, Linda won't stop." "No," Evelyn said. "She won't. And that's why you need to make your next move lawful, visible, and documented." I knew what she meant before she said it. "The gate," I said. A pause. "You have the right to secure private property," Evelyn answered carefully. "But we do it clean. Notice posted. Cameras running. Emergency access preserved. No theatrics." I almost smiled. "You ever known me theatrical? I've known quiet men to get pushed too far. Stay quiet. Let the gate speak." After we hung up, I gathered the documents into a new folder and wrote the label myself. Silver Pines, West Access. Then I called Mac Turner, an old welder out of Bent Creek who had built half the ranch gates in the county, and every one of them mean enough to make a trespasser reconsider his life. He picked up with gravel in his voice. "Mercer? I need a gate. How big?" 14 feet. Steel pipe. Heavy hinges. Posts sunk deep. "Cattle? No." He went quiet. "People, then. A subdivision." Mac gave a low whistle. "That's a new one. I need it by dawn Saturday. You want pretty or serious?" I looked down at my father's note, at the sentence about the vein of the pasture. "Serious," I said. "Black iron. No mistake about it." Mac chuckled once, but there was no humor in it. "I can do serious." That night I carried Wade Mercer's folder to the kitchen table and laid it beside Linda's fine notice. One was old, plain, and legal. The other was shiny, arrogant, and worthless. For the first time since I saw those roofs, my anger settled into something steady. Linda Carver had built her power on paper that lied. My father had left me paper that told the truth. And before sunrise, I was going to put steel between the two. Mac Turner arrived at 4:40 a.m. with a welding rig, 2 men, and a flatbed carrying black iron pipe heavy enough to make the truck springs groan. We worked under floodlights at the mouth of the cattle lane, while the rest of the valley stayed dark. Evelyn's instructions sat on my dashboard in a printed checklist. Post notice. Record installation. Preserve emergency access. No confrontation unless witnessed. By 6:05, the gate stood across the road. 14 feet of black steel, 2 posts sunk deep in concrete. A chain thick as my wrist looped through the center. Beside it, I bolted a metal sign into the fence rail. Private road access restricted pending court order. Mercer Creek ranchie stepped back and watched the first morning light touch the letters. For the first time since those rooftops appeared beyond my fence, Silver Pines had to look at the truth before it drove over it. The first car came at 6:18. A gray sedan rolled down from the subdivision, brake lights flashing when the driver saw the gate. A man in a dress shirt got out, looked at the sign, then looked up toward the ridge where my truck sat with the dash camera running. He tried his phone. Then he turned around. The second car was a pickup. The third was a school van. By 7:30, there were 12 vehicles backed up along Silver Pines Boulevard, people standing in the cold with coffee cups, backpacks, and confusion on their faces. They did not look like enemies. They looked like folks who had been sold a normal morning and found a locked gate instead. That part sat heavy in me, but not heavy enough to open it. Linda Carver arrived at 8:11 in her white SUV, driving too fast for a road she did not own. She slammed the door and marched to the gate in a navy coat, phone already raised. "You can't do this," she shouted. I walked down from my truck with the folder under my arm. Max stayed by the fence, welding gloves tucked into his back pocket. Two residents started filming. "This is private ranch access," I said. "You were notified. You are trapping families." "No. You built families behind a road you never had permission to use." Her eyes cut to the sign. "This is criminal endangerment. It's documented property control pending court review." She laughed hard, but it cracked in the middle. "You think a homemade sign beats an HOA?" "No, Linda. I think a recorded deed beats one." A woman near the front of the line stepped forward, holding a toddler against her hip. "Linda, what is he talking about?" Linda did not answer her. She pointed at me. "This man is unstable. He has been harassing this community since the day he wandered in here." I opened the folder and held up the HOA fine she had sent me. "You fined me for having cattle on the ranch my father left me." Murmurs moved through the line. Linda's voice sharpened. "That document is under legal review. So is your road." A tan county cruiser pulled up from the highway side. Sheriff Mark Harlan got out slowly, his face already tired. Linda rushed toward him. "Sheriff, remove this gate." Mark looked at the sign, the chain, the cameras, then at me. "Caleb, you have emergency access arranged?" I held up a sealed envelope. "Knoxbox key for fire and medical. Evelyn filed notice this morning." He nodded once. Linda stared at him. "You're allowing this?" "I'm acknowledging the deed record," Mark said. "Until a judge orders otherwise, Mr. Mercer can restrict private access." The crowd went quiet. That silence did more damage than shouting ever could. Tom Bledsoe arrived next, red-faced, shirt untucked under his jacket. "Linda, what the hell is going on?" She turned on him. "Not now." A man I had not seen before stepped out from behind a blue truck. Mid-40s, work boots, ball cap pulled low. He looked at Linda, then at me. "My name's Ben Whitaker," he said. "Lot 18. Linda snapped. "Ben, get back in your vehicle." He ignored her. "Mr. Mercer," he said, "did the HOA ever show you an easement?" "No." Ben's jaw tightened. That's what I thought. Linda's face changed. Not anger this time. Fear. My phone buzzed in my coat pocket. Unknown number. A text message appeared with an attachment. Ben looked at me from across the gate. "You need to read that." I opened it. It was an email chain from 3 months earlier. Linda's name at the top. Tom Bledsoe copied. Prairie Crest Development copied. One sentence hit me like a hammer on frozen ground. Mercer may still own the lane, but construction is too far along for him to stop us. I looked up. Linda was no longer shouting. She was staring at my phone, and for the first time she understood the gate was not the thing that had trapped her. Her own words had. I forwarded the email to Evelyn before Linda could collect herself. Then I put the phone back in my pocket and said nothing. That silence bothered her more than any threat would have. The line of cars behind her kept growing. People whispered. Phones stayed up. Sheriff Harlan walked to the gate, checked the chain, checked the sign, then turned to the residents. "Emergency access has been provided," he said. "This is a civil property matter under active review. I suggest everyone speak with their board and their own attorneys." Linda tried to regain control. "This is temporary. The HOA is handling it." Ben Whitaker laughed once, hard and bitter. "You had an email saying he owned the lane." Her eyes cut to him. "You don't understand development law." "No," Ben said, "but I understand English." That spread through the crowd faster than the cold. I left before the reporters arrived. By noon, 2 news vans were parked near the county highway. Cameras pointed at my gate like it was a crime scene. By evening, Silver Pine's private Facebook group had spilled into the public internet. Screenshots, arguments, threats of lawsuits, people asking whether their title insurance covered being built behind a road the HOA did not own. Linda sent a community-wide email just after dark. "Residents, please remain calm. Mr. Mercer is engaging in reckless intimidation tactics. The board is pursuing all available remedies to restore normal access and protect your families." Ben forwarded that one too. I sat at my kitchen table with coffee gone cold, reading it beside my father's access affidavit. Her words were getting smaller. My documents were getting heavier. Evelyn called at 9:30. "The email Ben sent changes the temperature," she said. "Enough?" "Enough to move for an expedited hearing. It shows prior knowledge. It also makes their fine against you look retaliatory." She's telling residents I'm the threat. She has to. If they look at the paperwork, they'll look at her. The next day, I did not go to the gate. I checked water tanks, fixed the cut fence, fed Daisy, let the cameras run. The iron gate stood down the ridge, black and still, while Silver Pines unraveled behind it. Every few hours, a truck would idle, stop, reverse. Every few hours, my phone would buzz with another forwarded message. Then Ben called. His voice was low. "We're holding a town hall tonight. Residents only, supposedly. You should come." "I'm not a resident. You own the ground under the clubhouse, don't you?" I did not answer. He said, "People need to see the documents without Linda standing between them and the truth." I called Evelyn. "Go," she said. "Do not argue. Bring copies. Let them ask questions. Record everything if the law allows it." That night, I walked into the Silver Pines clubhouse carrying one folder. The room went silent before I reached the back wall. Folding chairs were packed tight. Residents stood along the sides with tired faces and angry eyes. Some looked at me like I had wrecked their lives. Others looked like they were starting to understand who had. Linda stood at the front beside Tom Bledsoe, one hand on the podium, the projector behind her showing a slide titled "Access Restoration Plan." Her mouth tightened when she saw me. "This meeting is for homeowners," she said. Ben stood from the second row. He was invited. He is not a member of this association. "No," Ben said. "That's the problem, isn't it?" The room shifted. Linda pointed to the door. "Mr. Mercer, leave." I walked forward instead and set 3 documents on the table in front of her. The Mercer Creek Ranch deed, the 1984 Westgate affidavit, the email where she admitted the lane might still be mine. I turned to face the room. "I didn't come here to punish families," I said. "I know some of you bought these homes in good faith, but your board fined me for cattle on my ranch. They tried to gate me out of my own access lane, and now they're calling me dangerous because I finally made them read the deed." A woman in the front row covered her mouth. Tom stepped toward the table. "These documents are being reviewed. Ben picked up the email copy. Then review this one out loud. Linda's face went pale. No one moved. So Ben read it. Mercer may still own the lane, he said, voice carrying through the room, but construction is too far along for him to stop us. The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of people doing the math. A man near the aisle stood. Linda, did you know before closing? She said nothing. Another voice. Did Prairie Crest know? Still nothing. A woman holding a stack of mortgage papers whispered, What did we buy? That question broke the room. Voices rose, sharp and frightened. Tom tried to call for order, but nobody listened. Linda stepped back from the podium like the floor had shifted under her feet. I picked up my folder, leaving the copies on the table. At the door, I looked back once. Linda Carver was still standing in front of the projector, but nobody was looking to her for answers anymore. The next morning, Evelyn called before sunrise. The judge moved the hearing up, she said. I looked out the window toward the gate, and in her voice I heard the first clean edge of victory. Tomorrow. And in her voice I heard the first clean edge of victory. The courthouse was full before 9. Residents from Silver Pines packed the benches shoulder to shoulder. Reporters stood in the hallway. Linda Carver sat at the front table in a navy suit, Tom Bledsoe beside her, both of them looking smaller without the clubhouse podium and HOA seal behind them. Evelyn Shaw placed our folders on the table one by one. Deed, survey, Westgate affidavit, county overlay, HOA fine. Linda's email, no wasted motion, no speech for the cameras, just paper stacked in the order it would cut. Judge Samuel Greer entered at 9:04, and the room rose. He was a lean man with silver hair and the flat eyes of someone who had spent 30 years listening to people dress up bad facts in expensive words. Linda's attorney went first. He talked about families, children, school buses, medical access, a community thrown into fear by one rancher's unilateral action. He said I had created emotional distress, interfered with contracts, and used a gate as leverage to force Silver Pines into submission. I sat still. Evelyn wrote one sentence on her legal pad, then turned it toward me. Let him talk feelings. We have title. When he finished, Judge Greer looked at Evelyn. She stood. Your Honor, this case is not complicated because the defendants built something complicated. It is complicated because they built it on land they did not own. The room went quiet. She started with the 1968 deed showing Mercer Creek Ranch intact. Then the 1984 boundary confirmation. Then Wade Mercer's recorded West Access affidavit retaining the cattle lane exclusively for the ranch and its heirs. She placed the county overlay beside the original survey. Silver Pines Estates occupies land still titled to Caleb Mercer. Its only access road crosses the retained private lane. There is no recorded conveyance, no easement, no annexation agreement, and no public dedication. Linda's attorney stood. We dispute that characterization. Evelyn did not look at him. Then produced the document. He sat down. She moved to the fine notice. After being shown certified records, the HOA issued Mr. Mercer a $9,600 violation notice for livestock, fencing, and alleged unauthorized entry. That notice is signed by Ms. Carver and claims HOA jurisdiction over a non-member on private ranch land. Judge Greer leaned forward. Ms. Carver signed that? Linda's attorney answered too quickly. As part of routine enforcement. The judge's eyes lifted. Routine enforcement over land. The association may not own? No one answered. Then Evelyn brought out the email. She read it once, clean and slow. Mercer may still own the lane, but construction is too far along for him to stop us. A sound moved through the room. Not a gasp exactly. More like 60 people realizing the floor beneath them had been hollow. Linda's face drained. Judge Greer removed his glasses and looked directly at her table. "Who wrote this?" Evelyn replied. "Linda Carver, copied to Tom Bledsoe and Prairie Crest Development LLC." Tom stared down at his hands. Linda whispered something to her attorney, but he did not stand. Judge Greer turned to him. "Counsel, I am going to ask one question. I want a direct answer. Do you have a deed, easement, recorded license, court order, or any written permission granting Silver Pines Estates the right to use Mr. Mercer's access lane?" The attorney opened a folder, then another. He shuffled pages that had already lost the case. "Your Honor, the association relied on county planning approvals and developer representations. That was not my question." The attorney swallowed. "No, Your Honor, not in the form the court is asking for." The silence hit harder than any shout. Judge Greer set his glasses back on. "The court finds that Mr. Mercer has demonstrated a substantial likelihood of success on title and access claims. The HOA fines issued against him are void pending final review. Silver Pines Estates is restrained from further enforcement against Mr. Mercer or Mercer Creek Ranch. The private gate may remain in place, subject to emergency and essential access protocols already submitted." Linda closed her eyes. The judge continued, "I am also ordering a full title review of the Silver Pines development file, including Prairie Crest Development LLC's submissions and the county overlay process. A damages hearing will be scheduled. If the email entered today is authenticated, this court will consider sanctions and referral for further investigation." He looked over the courtroom. An HOA covenant is not a magic wand. It cannot create land you do not own. That was the line the reporters ran with before noon. Outside, cameras surrounded me at the courthouse steps. "Mr. Mercer, will you force the families out? Will you keep the gate closed? Are the homes going to be demolished?" I looked past the microphones at the Silver Pines residents standing in small, frightened groups. Ben Whitaker stood among them, watching me carefully. I took off my hat. "I came for the truth," I said, "not their children's bedrooms." No one spoke for a second. Then the cameras started clicking again. Behind them, Linda Carver walked down the courthouse steps without her clipboard, without her smile, and without a single person following her. By nightfall, she had resigned. No speech, no apology. Just a 2-paragraph email sent to Silver Pines residents saying she was stepping down to allow the community to heal. Tom Bledsoe resigned an hour later. Prairie Crest Development LOA stopped answering calls by morning, and by noon, Evelyn had already filed preservation notices demanding every email, plat, closing packet, and title communication tied to Silver Pines. The old HOA board collapsed faster than a rotten fence post. Ben Whitaker called me that evening. "We voted in an emergency session," he said. His voice sounded tired, but lighter. "I'm interim president." "You wanted that job?" "Hell no." He gave a small laugh. "That's probably why they trusted me." "What happens now?" "No more fines. No enforcement. No letters. We froze everything until attorneys sort out what Linda and Prairie Crest did." He paused. "Caleb, people are scared. But most of them know now that you didn't start this." I looked out the kitchen window toward the west ridge. The gate was still there, black under the yard light, the chain hanging heavy across the road. "I never wanted 60 families hurt," I said. "I know. That's why I'm calling." The next weeks were not clean or easy. Lawsuits hit Prairie Crest from every direction. Residents sued over title defects. The county opened its review of the false overlay. The planning consultant's signature became a problem no one in Denver wanted to discuss on record. Evelyn kept pressure on all of them, steady and sharp, while I kept working cattle, mending fence, and sleeping better than I had since the morning I saw those roofs. The gate stayed closed to regular traffic, but emergency access remained. School and medical transport went through under county supervision. Every crossing was logged. Every key was documented. Nobody could say I acted reckless. Nobody could say I acted out of spite. That mattered. 1 month after Judge Greer's ruling, the county asked for a meeting. Evelyn sat beside me at the same kitchen table where my father's maps had been spread the first night. Across from us were 2 county officials, Ben Whitaker, and a transportation attorney with a stack of papers thick enough to stop a door. The offer was simple. The county would purchase the access lane at a premium, convert it into a public road, indemnify Mercer Creek Ranch against future claims, and permanently mark the boundary between Silver Pines and my remaining land. Evelyn read every line. I watched the wind move across the pasture beyond the window. "You can say no," she said quietly. "The court affirmed your rights. You can keep the lane private and push for more." "I know. You could make them pay for years." "I know that too." Ben looked down at his hands. He did not plead. I respected him for that. I thought about Wade Mercer's note. Once they control the vein, they control the land beyond it. He had been right. But control was not the same as stewardship. My father had taught me to defend land, not worship a grudge. "What's the road name?" I asked. The transportation attorney slid 1 page forward. "Mercer Way." I read it twice. Not Silver Pines Boulevard, not Prairie Crest Drive. Mercer Way. The county would put the name on the map, the sign, the maintenance records, the public dedication, every legal description going forward. My father's name would sit where Linda tried to erase it. I picked up the pen. Evelyn witnessed my signature. Ben let out a breath he had probably been holding for a month. The money came through 2 weeks later. More than fair market. More than any old cattle lane should have brought if men had asked honestly before pouring asphalt. Part went into ranch repairs. Part went toward legal costs. Part 1 set aside for a Mercer Creek land trust, so no one after me would have to guess where the lines were. The day they removed the gate, I rode Daisy up to the ridge and watched. County crews unchained the black iron, loaded it onto a flatbed, and set a new green road sign in concrete. Mercer Way. It stood clean against the sky. Silver Pines changed after that. The old HOA structure dissolved. Ben helped form a limited neighborhood association with no fines, no private courts, no clipboard kingdom. Residents planted real trees along the road, not the decorative sticks Prairie Crest had installed. Some families left. Others stayed. All of them knew what their homes were built on now. Truth did not erase the damage, but it stopped the lie from growing. Months later, I rode the western fence line again. The broken post had been replaced. The boundary markers were bright and legal. Down below, a boy on a bike stopped near the new road sign and waved up at me. I lifted 2 fingers from the reins. The land was smaller by 1 strip of asphalt, but it felt whole again. They built 60 homes on Mercer Creek Ranch and thought a quiet man would stay quiet. They fined me for standing on my father's dirt. They tried to bury old truth under fresh pavement, bylaws, and a woman's signature. But deeds remember. Maps remember. Land remembers. And sometimes, 1 locked gate is enough to make a whole county read the fine print.
The lesson here is simple, but it runs deep. Don't wait until someone else defines your rights for you. Caleb didn't solve this by shouting louder, stressing attention, or trying to scare anybody. He went back to the records. He trusted the deed, the surveys, the on-file his father kept, and the law that still recognized the truth when people finally had to look at it. Sometimes standing your ground means staying calm long enough for the fact to catch up. And that's equal remembering a person's land, home, name, and family history deserve respect. Not because they are loud, not because they have power, but because what is right should not depend on who has the biggest sign, the nicest office, or the most confident voice in the room. So let me ask you this. If you were Caleb and you found out a whole HOA had brought onto your land, would you have stayed calm and build the case the same way? Type yes in the comments if you would stand your ground and tell us what you would have done. And if stories like this speak to you, quiet people on this range road and just take handle the right way, go ahead and subscribe. There are more HOA and land right story coming, torn with truth, dignity, and the kind of common sense this country will build on.